Well, today, folks, we're going to have the answer, as far as I'm concerned, for the question about vents in metal skirting. When I first started out, usually the customers say, well, you're going to put some vents in? I was like, yeah, I'll put some vents in. And it's really difficult to do because metal skirting has ribs. You end up having to build trim around it for it to sit on, and it still ends up actually funneling water in from the rain. But after a while, which I've done into the hundreds of metal skirting jobs, you get to realizing that it's not making any difference. If there's a water leak, the water doesn't stay underneath the house, because the J-channel that sits on the ground, even if it's sitting on concrete, is never going to hold the water. It'll just run through, and by the way, water runs from uphill underneath the house and so on. Matter of fact, I would recommend that if you have an air conditioner installed, even secondary air conditioner, you might consider, you should tell them to have the air conditioner on the downhill side, so that the water that runs, they quite often run the drain line. You particularly want the drain line to go downhill, because if it goes uphill, it'll go underneath the house like we're talking about. So then the water stays. Okay, so the question gets to be, we want vents for the fact that water might get underneath the house. Invariably, water does get underneath the house because that skirting does not hold the water from getting underneath the house. Guess what? It's the same rule that water doesn't stay underneath the house either. Now, houses have vents in the foundation because that foundation is dug into the ground, sometimes 16, 18, 20 inches, and then made flat so they can put blocks. So it's literally made a dam for water to be holding. It's concrete even, whereas mobile home generally doesn't have that. But even if it did, the skirting would not hold the water in like a block wall would. So you need to figure out a way to let that water get away. Also, a house doesn't normally have plastic on the bottom of it. It just has the insulation. So they put plastic on the ground. Then you have even more of an issue of the water once it gets in there, say from a water leak in the house. Once the water gets in there, it stays in there. It's a pond because the plastic is holding the water. And therefore you need a vent. None of these situations are generally what we have with a house, a mobile home. And if you're using metal skirting, you don't have block. You're not going to put that skirting over the block unless you're just looking for a better decoration. So first, let's see. With metal skirting, do we actually have no vents if we just do the way that I've been showing you? Actually, that's not true. If you look on the back side here, can we zoom in? That skirting goes against the wall. It generally, and I mean it's rare that you ever get the trim on top to sit flat against. Usually you have that much room. Now, every one of these ribs opens up into here. So if we're concerned about a lot of hot water from a leaking hot water heater or a major water leak, first of all, that's your thing you need to fix. Second of all, you have a plastic barrier on the bottom of the house. Thirdly, if you put plastic on the bottom, like I see a lot of new houses doing now, you're actually contributing to holding water there. So you have vents underneath this cover with every one of these ribs breathing out. Okay. Does it let wind blow through? No, it doesn't. But wind blowing by actually creates a vacuum, and it literally pulls from the bottom. But do you need vents? No. I have 18 mobile homes rentals, and I have worked on umpteen hundreds that have not had vents. and I've been underneath the house many, many years, and including this mobile home park here that we're at, 10 years, not ever had an issue with not having vents. Not ever. We just went to engineer's house, and he created a skirting system which is different than mine. He used 10 and ran it this way, which is a little bit on the tacky side, but it works, and he's got it insulated. No vents. Okay, that's an engineer. Now we have a decision. If you want to put vents in, you can. Do you need them? No, you don't need them. The enemy that you have is water that stays underneath the house. It is not that you don't have vents. I promise you. Don't put plastic down underneath your mobile home because you already have plastic to protect the bottom of the mobile home. So therefore, the vapor cannot get to it, cannot run the floors, da-da-da-da-da-da. Vents can actually be your enemy. How? If you forget, or if you don't get those vents closed all the way in the wintertime, that cold air gets underneath, freezes your pipes quicker. Don't need vents. You can argue all you want to, you can go with whatever discussion you want to, but I'm telling you, for 15 years, I've installed metal skirting, no vents, and guess what? No calls back. No calls back. Hundreds of metal skirting jobs never had a problem with not having vents. Make your own decisions, put vents in if you want to, but I've never had a call back. Thank you guys. Hope you learned something a little bit more. I'm happy to share with you all the things that I have, and I want your life to be better. Thank you again.